Okay, this is this is me calling the February 28th Transportation Committee. We have a pretty, not too many items on the agenda, so hopefully this meeting will be relatively short. Can we go around the table here just to get attendance for the record?
Scott Potts.
Mike Wolf, Lauren Small.
Dane Oaks O'Neill, and just for the record, the transportation contractors have representatives here as well. So and those are the only people here at this time. All right, so we'll start off with a brief contract update. We sort of went over this last night at the board meeting, but we can touch on it again. Lauren, do we actually have a summary from Brian of the changes? I mean, he
Reviewed last night were all of the changes that we made since the board made their approval in December. We agreed to allow you to move ahead with your current GPS and two-way system, which are two separate systems rather than one. Archiving of the recording devices over time. As you implement new devices, you will add the 30-minute or whatever it is. And the other issue as far as how long you keep it, we felt that, I don't have it open here right now, but the time in there, it'll work for us because in most cases, we're going to request any data, any footage within a couple of days anyway, or it's old information. Billing and payment deal by the end of the month. I did a little quick survey, and I couldn't find any real variances there. Sometimes we do it in January. We did it by the 5th of January for December. So I think that's going to be fine. And if you just as long as I'm here as business manager, if you feel that we're dragging anything out, because turnaround once we review that invoice.
We always have our invoices in by the first couple of days of the month.
By the first of the month, and like I say, I think the longest I saw was one that went out to the 26th for some reason, but it's within the month. We don't run into the next month.
So it may be a week earlier, maybe, or
That's my intent always was once we receive it and review it, and the payables girl does her verification, the check is cut.
Okay.
So you're not going to have a problem there. And the other was the increase in the event of federal mandates of any type, when they say seat belts in all the buses, that type of thing, that if it exceeds 10%, I think that was the hot spots last night, I believe.
Yep, I think so too.
Brian kind of did a public overview of everything that he had reviewed with your solicitor, your attorney. So if there's anything that we've missed?
Let me just say, for the record, Mr. Kurtz arrived at 6:06, so he is now here. Is there anything else, that you guys recall having been changed that we neglected to mention?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay. So with regard to cost for the district, the changes are all, I mean, there isn't any change is there any change in the cost of the district, Lauren, based on?
As far as the rates, no.
That's what I mean.
There was nothing
the rates
financial.
them-
This
right.
was just details.
Okay.
Fine tuning some things. And because this will move forward now as a recommendation from the Transportation Committee tonight to the COW on the 13th, the committee of the whole meeting on the 13th, will be voted on the 27th. And by then, Brian, what I have is his draft. It's got line outs and whatnot in it. We'll have a signing party. Get her done.
Now so given that the changes are, like we said, details as opposed to the financials, I am fine with the changes, with going forward with the changes outlined. Does anybody on the committee have a problem with any of the changes that we've discussed? Okay. So I will make a recommendation to the board at the COW on the 13th to approve the changes, and then I will vote on it on the 27th and be done with it. Okay, so it will finally be put to bed, but I mean, once again, I can't imagine, given that the changes that we outlined don't have any financial impact on the district, I can't imagine that anyone on the board is gonna have any issue with any of the changes. Okay, moving on to the clerk software update. I have put them on here as one agenda item because they're linked, right, with regard to, we can't really set up the training until we know who the clerk, how the clerk thing is going to be handled. So clearly it's not going to be yours. So you guys at least know that it's not going to be a headache for you.
I spoke with TransFinder this afternoon. They're waiting in the wings, if you will, once we determine the structure that we're going to implement internally. They're ready to move forward and begin the training. They've received data from Ron Smith, the current data. They've received data from Scott Matz internally here, and we're ready to move as soon as we get the position filled.
Okay. Connor, this is on the clerk, not the clerk position, because I think the clerk position is going away, right? I think the responsibilities are going to be absorbed by some other position. I think that's what it's going to be, right? So I think,
In-house, right?
yes, in-house. So my point is, I think at this point, I will be somewhat, you and I are both on the personnel committee, but my point is that I think we're going to need to decide there ultimately exactly where those responsibilities lie, and if in fact those responsibilities will be handled by a position that isn't currently filled in the district, that doesn't exist in the district, right? Obviously, that needs to be hired and handled before we can actually move forward with the training.
Okay. Yeah, the timetable I see for the Personnel Committee is we're looking at all of the administrative positions at the next meeting, and I guess that would be the time to talk about what our vision is and how we want to do it.
Okay.
So by that point, I hope we'll have some type of direction for the administration.
Right. Okay, so, and just to remind everyone, the next personnel committee is the 20th. It's between the cow and the voting meeting, right? So at the personnel committee meeting on the 20th, as Connor said, we will be discussing all of the administrative positions. And at that point, we will need to resolve where this is going to be. I'm glad to hear, Lauren, that you're communicating with TransFinder and that they have the data and that they're ready to go, because we were hoping, I think, to have this started already. So,
Well, March 1st was our goal. We can make it happen.
Right. My point is just that
Sooner the committee can come forward to the board with a recommendation and we can get it going.
right. The longer it takes to get this resolved, the more compressed the actual training timetable gets, right? So there is some urgency to get this resolved.
Yeah, there's some urgency on some other administrative, there's a lot of urgency. So hopefully by the end of the next meeting, we'll have, I feel like that's being optimistic though, thinking we're going to have this entire situation.
Yeah, I think so too.
But let's
We
make
can
that our goal.
shoot for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
At the very least, this, I guess, will take precedence because of the timing element.
Okay. Anybody have any? Yes, John.
Just a quick question. Are we going to have access to the training of the program? And the reason I ask that is, we're the ones that know the current routes and know the roads, so we're going to have to help this person to do this. Maybe somebody from each of our companies should be included in that as well.
That's the plan.
Okay.
And part of our reason for getting this going, we want to utilize the resources of Ron Smith as much as possible prior to June 30th.
Can we get the software in ahead of time and let them have access to it to work, to become, because the training would be better if the trainer would be more accustomed to it.
I can talk to him about that. Ideally, we discussed that today about bringing it in because we're planning to do some backup of the individual within the business office as well. And he would prefer that we hit the ground running with all parties involved. That would be the most efficient way to do it, rather than backing up and going ahead.
You know, maybe we can get a sense of how long we think it will be. I mean, if we can go to the voting meeting on the 27th and have this ironed out, be sure that we know whose responsibility it's going to be and get board approval to have it hired. Hopefully it doesn't take, if on the 28th they can start actually looking for to fill whatever box is going to be responsible for this.
If we could maybe give a heads up at the COW, you could report out from this committee. and
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about it in personnel, the specifics of how it's going to go out, but because of this urgency, if we could fill it, because I know we try to have debate at committee of the whole and then
Right.
vote, but if we can talk about it at COW. and-
Sure.
Yeah, hopefully that can get wrapped up, because we can put it on the committee of the whole, just bring back that motion that was stricken and allow you to talk about it, and then we vote on it the next week.
Well, the only issue I have there is that the committee meeting won't happen until after the COW. So the only thing I'd be able to say, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could
At
bring
least
it.
that would be a
Yeah, we
placeholder
could,
then.
because we've been it's been talked about, so it's not.
Yeah,
coming
Yeah,
out of
it's
left
not
field.
brand new
We
to
leaning
anyone.
towards any certain person?
I'm not,
Well,
I'm totally neutral, but if, if we put back on those two resolutions on the cow, and they could move forward with their meeting a week later, we could have it on the voting meeting and vote it up or vote it down.
As I see it though, what if the person, I don't want to turn this into a personnel committee meeting, but what if the person whose role it would be probably be this director of contract services
Yes.
or whoever,
I think that's the most likely.
right? That would be my thinking at this time, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, is that consistent with what? Did we, I think was it, Mike, was it you who had the concern about
Yeah,
the timing?
I think the responsibility of this position,
Oh, right.
Right, just for you guys, because you haven't been in on this discussion. So we've been talking about where there's the potential for there being a new administrative position that's been talked about, and that's part of what the personnel committee is trying to set out is we're discussing with the administration what Superintendent Harris's vision is for the district, what he wants. We're vetting what he wants, and we'll decide whether we agree with that vision or not, and hopefully we can get on the same page there. The position that we think is most likely to end, that has gotten the most discussion with regard to handling these responsibilities, the routing responsibilities, unfortunately, is also the position that oversees GCA, the maintenance and custodial company that's handling, that does the outsourcing of that. So the problem with that, we think, or at least it's been raised, is that we think that the maintenance portion is going to be the busiest in the summer. Because obviously, the big maintenance items, we're going to wait until the summer when the kids aren't there. And unfortunately, that's the same time that the routing has to be done. So there's some concern that if the same person has both of those sets of responsibilities, they could have difficulty handling both, because that's going to be a busy time of year for them. And I think it's a legitimate
It relates
concern.
back to GCA, who's supposed to supply us with 3 qualified maintenance mechanics, and they've yet to do that. So there's a lot of hands-on from our administrator doing the work, training these people to do the job that they're already supposed to be able to do. And, both of these two things are too important to fall down. And I have that. I don't have that comfort factor
I
right
think
now we can't rely on the contractor who's supposed to do it.
I haven't spoken to all the people who usually sit around this table, but I have a hard time believing that any of them don't think that it's not a legitimate concern, right? Given that there's still a lot we know how understaffed GCA is and how much extra time Casey is spending doing that stuff, which they should be doing. So I think I think we would all agree that it's a legitimate concern.
Who's the fallback for the clerk? You talked about the business office.
Yes, would
I'm good.
Kathleen potentially be?
I'm going to have someone in the business office, if not more than one, looking over their shoulder while this training is going on, so that they've got familiarity with the product, and that's what John's speaking to.
Right.
Right.
And what if we did something there where the director of contract services, or whatever the title will be, they will be the chief
Right.
administrator in charge, but then we can have somebody maybe in the business office who's in charge of handling the software. So it's a division of labor that ultimately the
You're gonna need
contract.
that. Most certainly, you're gonna need
You've
that.
got to have cross training. It's the bottom.
Yeah, you're right. We definitely need to be cross-trained, so.
Somebody's going to want to take vacation or
Right,
be sick or somebody.
The
Yeah.
week all the runs are due, yeah.
right. So, okay, so like I said, I mean, my only point is that it's all right, it's effectively March, right? And the timetable, we know that Ron's leaving at June 30th, Ron's done, right? So at this point, we only have 4 months with
He's
Ron.
about burned out right now.
I know he is. I mean, I know, and like I said, I think you guys know that I asked him if he would be willing to stay, and he politely said no. So,
I've already paid for him until June 30th.
What's that?
Tell him I've already paid for him until June 30th.
Yeah. Pay for the position, maybe not him.
yeah. So yeah, like I
Yeah, they
said,
can do that too, they can have a second person.
I think it's Jack.
No, it's not either. You don't know, there's a little 83-year-old lady named Josie that also works in our office that really runs the show.
so like I said, we are getting to, by the time that things are voted on at the earliest, now it's the end of March, right? So now we've got 3 months to get trained and things up and going before. So, the timetable's getting fairly compressed, so we definitely need to make sure that it gets discussed and acted upon, because we, at this point, we're gonna have less time than we had originally hoped, so. Anybody else have anything on that? All right, so Connor, we'll make sure that that person, I'll bring it up at the cow and we'll make sure that we move it
And I'll
forward.
make myself a note so I don't forget.
Okay, great.
Since your meeting is off week from the others, it can be a long meeting and get things done.
That's a good point. And not only that, it comes after. Well, you'll be there, right?
For which-
If you're condemning us to a long meeting, I want you to be there. Go faster. Also, it comes after C&I, so we're only limited by, we can go all night long.
Oh,
What
right,
time do you
right.
start your meetings?
C&I is at 5:30 and personnel is at 7.
Okay. The only other thing I have on the, I asked to be put on the agenda is this crowding on the middle school bus issue, which all of you probably don't know. So, did you happen to hear from Ron, number of buses?
No,
Steve?
we were just, John and I.
Putting your heads together?
We figure there's about between 15 and 16 up there.
About 16.
Okay, so the issue is this, and there was an incident on a bus in October that a family is claiming was a result of this. We'll get into it. So the point is this: I think everybody in this room knows that maximum bus capacity for the full-size buses is 72. Not very many rosters have anywhere near that many kids, but some do, and you can particularly get away with it on high school having high bus rosters because so many kids don't end up on the bus, right? So you can have 68 kids rostered on a high school bus. It's 48 is where they're two to a seat, and then the first kid at 49 there's one group of 3, right? And if at full capacity at 72 all the seats have 3. I think you guys know that the bus seats are 39 inches, so it's 13 inches per person. And when you've got high school kids, you would need 3 pretty small high schoolers to have them fit comfortably in a 39-inch seat. But in high school, that's not generally a problem because regardless of the rosters, we rarely are above 48, so the kids are fairly comfortable on the high school bus runs. And in elementary school, the kids are generally small enough that the 70, once again, there aren't 72 rostered, but the 3 to a seat situation isn't a big issue. It's middle school where where there's a much bigger issue, because in middle school, almost all the kids ride the bus, because obviously they aren't old enough to drive. So unless their parents drive them, they're using the bus. And the kids are big enough that the 13 inches becomes an issue. And additionally, they're at that age where, because of the whole puberty thing, body awareness thing, I think they're oftentimes more uncomfortable with touching the person next to them than other age groups, right? So that increases the likelihood that somebody ends up sitting on 4 inches of seat, essentially sitting halfway in the aisle, right? So the current bus situation is such that the middle school bus runs have a significant, I think Ron told me, I think the average roster is 60 of the buses, of the middle school buses. I believe that's the number. So we've got half of the seats, if everyone's on the bus, half of the seats roughly are 3 to a seat. And once again, based on the size of the kids, and their comfort level with sitting in close quarters with other kids, there's a number of situations where kids are sort of sitting halfway in the aisle, right? The bus drivers know it and monitor it to the extent that they can, but of course they're busy driving. They have much bigger, once the bus is moving, they have much bigger fish to fry than how the kids are seated in the bus. But the problem with this, of course, is that the way that the buses were designed, right, as a safety feature, it's being inside essentially each seat area, right, is its own safety compartment. And you need to be all the way in the seat to be in the safety compartment, with the seat in front of you being part of the safety setup. So if a kid is halfway in the aisle and there's a hard stop or an accident or whatever, the kid's much more likely to not be in the safety compartment and end up in the aisle, where their likelihood of them getting injured is much more significant. We did have an incident where, like I said, in October, where a girl who was seated 3 to a seat during a supposed hard stop ended up falling into the aisle, which we have on video. She claims that she hit her head, and she went to the school nurse. The school nurse said, "We think she might have a concussion, she should be seen." She was taken to the doctor, diagnosed with a concussion, and she's had lingering concussion issues. The video was reviewed. I have seen the video. I know that Wayne and John have both seen the video. I'm not sure if Steve has seen it because it happened on a Klein bus. I've seen the video. I'm not calling anyone. I'm not trying to question the veracity of anything. I'm not disputing anyone's claims. This is a public situation. I want to make it clear that I'm not calling anyone a liar. But the video does not suggest. There is no video evidence of any impact to the head. But regardless, the situation occurred. It got investigated. It went to the insurance company. It was all handled. But it did make me want to bring the issue forward, because I do think that with the middle school buses, as crowded as they are right now, there is increased likelihood of injury, and therefore increased liability to the district because of the fact that the buses are crowded. So obviously the only solution is add a bus or more. And I had a conversation with Ron a couple months ago about it, and I believe that he told me that to get all the middle school bus rosters, based on the current numbers, 248, which would be 2 to a seat, I believe he told me it would be 3 buses. Now, I meant to ask him today, and I got busy doing something else, so I will make sure that I have that number correct. But I just wanted to bring it to the committee's attention so that we could maybe price it and then decide whether we think it's worth it. I understand that it's expensive. I understand that, buses are basically $40,000 a piece, right? So it's not an insignificant sum of money, but there's the public, the mother who, of the girl who had the incident that I was involved in, indirectly, although I did speak directly with the mother. She did post the situation on social media, and of course, there's a lot of backlash about apparent lack of concern for student safety, right? That the finances, it's another example of finances being the only thing that matters.
This is the school board's fault. Is that the conclusion of this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, which is how I got involved in the first
I
place.
see.
So I reached out to the mother and said, hey, look, I'm happy to talk to you about this if you are willing to talk to me. And she did. And we had a series of constructive conversations, and I think that I thought that I had convinced her that I cared, and that I was, like I said, I promised her that I would bring it forward to this committee. But she has recently become unresponsive to me, and I'm not going to harass her because there's no point in that. So she's clearly not thrilled with how things played out, but I can't, I honestly did the best I could, and I don't know what else we can do. Exactly. And as I promised her I would, I brought it here, and I did reach out to her on Friday, telling her that this meeting was tonight, and that if she wanted to come and talk about what happened and her concerns, I would like to have her here to discuss it, because she has firsthand knowledge of it, and obviously she did not choose to be here. So, and that's fine. But I just want to make it clear that I did ask, and I didn't get a response. So I don't know if she was busy or she just chose not to come or whatever the case may be. But I do think that there is merit to the point of view that kids of this size, right? It's a less than optimal situation. Now, having said that, we have an actual fiscal reality as well, right? So it's a balancing act, and I think it's also reasonable to say, historically, it's not like we've had a lot of claims, even if we are rostering 60 on the middle school
You only
buses.
need
So,
one. I think we gotta worry about safety. So,
I
yeah,
just have two short comments. The first one, just to add to what you said, remember, because of Weavertown Road, no students walk to the middle school. Even there's, I drove a bus not long ago, the student lives across the street from the middle school, and we drop that kid off and pick her up every morning from middle school. So keep that in mind. The other thing, I also talked to Ron around the same time you did, and he was doing projections as he does, and looking forward, he's anticipating there's going to be at least one more bus anyway because of the elementary reorganization. Did he
yes,
mention that to you?
yes, he mentioned
So-
exactly that to me.
Right, so we're essentially, I think, would be talking more about two
Right.
buses.
Right, we need 3, but we think
Right.
one of them is going to
One of them
happen
already
anyway. Right, so, but like I said, so I just wanted to make you guys aware of it, and then see if you thought it was worthy of discussion at a full board meeting, because of,
Should, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, want to know how many buses we're talking about, if we're going to be 2?
yeah, I can get that data from Ron. Like I said, I meant to do it today, and I did not have a chance, but,
I think you'll have a better idea when you have your final numbers as you get closer to summer
right,
and how you load the buses this year with the TransFinder system.
right,
I think you'll have a better idea how you can, if you have to add.
yeah, absolutely. But you do think it's worth, I mean, a conversation with the full board, and if it's, okay.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of, seems to be, I don't want to point a finger, the more discipline problems at the middle school. Is any of this related to
That's another
factor in close
that's another
proximity?
thing that I was just going to bring up, which is exactly that. They also do have the highest incidence of disciplinary problems, and I'm sure that part of it is a function of this, right? So there might be two advantages, right, in that it's safer and it reduces the number of incidents on the bus. So, like that, in my opinion, it was worth discussing, and that's why I decided to bring it forward to this committee.
When's that population bubble going to hit middle school?
It was fourth grade last year, right? So it's fifth grade this year. So I think what happened,
We're actually going down slightly in the middle school.
Oh,
yeah,
Just
we are.
slightly by-
Right. Sixth grade's going up by a lot, but the eighth grade class that is moving out was also big.
yeah.
So the middle school, I think, is down 7 net or
Yeah,
something like
It's
that.
pretty close to being a wash.
But when will that elementary bubble hit? Will it be after
It's
sixth
next
grade?
year.
Okay,
It is next year. But because the eighth grade class is so big, it's basically offsetting.
sure. But the fifth grade, fifth grade down is.
They're smaller.
Significant.
Yes,
Yeah,
you're right.
seventh-
So in 2 years, it might all,
The
let's,
seventh
if,
grade is smaller than the fifth grade. So.
right, if we assume for a second that it's 2 buses next year, because if one of them's already covered because we think there will be an extra bus, it's possible that the following year it might only be 1 bus because, as Connor said, the classes after the current 5th grade are smaller, right? So maybe there'll be enough fewer kids for us not to need a bus. It might only be 2 buses for 1 year. It's possible, at least. But I thought, like I said, at the very least, it was worthy of discussion at the full board meeting. And then at least even if we made the decision not to change anything, at least everyone would know, which I don't think, I mean, you guys probably didn't all know this. I only knew because I'm the chair of this committee, and because of that, I've been in more communication with the transportation guys than you have. And I have, my name's out there as the transportation committee head, so I've also had some discussions with, with residents. So I at least thought, at the very least, everyone on the board should be aware of this, even if we choose not to do anything collectively.
How much of a factor do the backpacks contribute to the overcrowding?
A lot.
And then a day like today where they all had coats in the morning but don't have them on in the afternoon causes a significant issue. Where do I put my coat?
Where I'm heading is, obviously, next year, the year after, there won't be any difference, but if we move 1-to-1 down into the middle school, there's going to be less of a need for these big old bulky backpacks transporting textbooks,
You guys know what we're referring to with the 1-to-1?
the iPads.
iPads instead of
Yeah,
textbooks.
that meter we were talking about.
Yeah,
So all I'm saying is, long-term,
right. If they may not need backpacks or bulky backpacks if they have
carrying these suitcases.
iPads instead.
I have a question.
That presentation.
Why don't school buses, why don't they have the overhead compartments that coach buses have?
It's not legal.
We used to have racks in there.
Wow.
We did.
They just
They
take
took
it
them
out.
out. We had to take them out.
Wow.
Keep your
In the event of an
trombones.
accident,
Things could fly.
books and items coming out were a safety hazard. That was their
Interesting.
thinking.
That's
Okay.
where the band instruments went.
Yeah, that's when I was going to school. That's definitely how.
My tuba didn't fit up there. I had to put it up in the bulkhead by the driver.
Which you can't do anymore
Can't
either.
do it anymore either.
It's not secured.
Well, that was a discipline idea too. If you misbehaved on the bus, you sat
In the
facing
bulkhead?
the bus under the bulkhead
Yeah.
so the driver could keep an eye on. Oh my.
Yeah. Those days are long gone.
And the bus driver's feet were underneath going like this.
Wasn't that early.
Okay, so I think we're all in agreement that this is something that the full board should discuss. So I will speak to Ron, get the hard numbers, and I will be prepared to speak to present it at the cow.
You know, you're basically, it could be, this is what it could be, and that's an effect, but you won't really know
course.
until the schedules are done, but it
Yeah.
could be this amount of money that we're talking about, so.
Right,
It's all gonna be hypothetical until the
Right.
final schedule.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you guys have anything else that didn't get discussed at the status meeting last week that are there any issues from your end that aren't on the agenda? But we're happy to address anything if there's anything that you guys have questions or concerns about that you think we should talk about. Anybody else? Anybody else on the committee, or Lauren, do you?
Any more snow days this year, gentlemen?
Nope.
I hope not. We have Berks County Pupil Transportation Association school bus driver rodeo safety competition on April 17th, which is a snow makeup day. So I would expect a lot of drivers and the recert hours and all kinds of stuff. So we're hoping for no more snow.
Hey, John, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah,
A small amount, or
yeah.
however much you want?
I won't say much. Berks County Pupil Transportation Association is made up of all of the supervisory people in the county. We get together, much like the superintendents do, at a monthly meeting. And our big event for the year is it's commonly called a rodeo. They call them safety competitions now, where the bus drivers go to compete on how safe they can be. They take a written test. They do, backing exercises, mock railroad crossing, mock school bus stop, that sort of thing, around the cones kind of thing. And so far, I think we have 16 or 18 Daniel Boone drivers that are participating. I'm very excited. They're very excited about it this year as well. It's being held at Twin Valley on April 17th. And we're trying to make a big deal about it because we've got a lot of really great drivers in our district. And we want to applaud them a little bit and show them off. So probably about between 80 and 100 drivers in the county will participate.
What are the hours?
What?
What are the hours for this?
I think it's 7 to 12 or something like that. So excited. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And then the top, 7?
Yeah, the top 10 actually.
Oh, it's 10?
The top 10 go on to the Pennsylvania State competition. And then if they place in the state competition, then they go to what they call the international competition because it's all drivers in Canada and the United States. It's usually held in North Carolina area over the summer. And if they win that, then there's big cash prizes and all kinds of stuff like that. So
We're going to be asked to reimburse this national competition soon, Odyssey to Mine.
it's really a cool thing, and I'm going to try to make some real media, get some real media attention on it, and show that our drivers are doing great things out there every day.
Great.
That is great. That is great. Okay, thanks, John. Anybody else? All right, I guess that's it then. Thank you all for coming.